नमस्कार, मैं हूं आशुतोष और आप देख रहे हैं सत्य हिंदी। सत्य हिंदी के विशेष कार्यक्रम आशुतोष की बात में आपका स्वागत है। बातचीत शुरू करने के पहले एक छोटी सी अपील। सत्य हिंदी एक कोशिश है ईमानदार, निडर और निर्भीक पत्रकारिता की। हम अपने लाखों दर्शकों के शुक्रगुजार हैं जो लाखों की संख्या में हमारे कार्यक्रम को देखते हैं और हमारी हौसला अफजाई करते हैं। हम उनसे एक और छोटी सी गुजारिश करना चाहते हैं कि आप न केवल हमारे कार्यक्रम देखें बल्कि संभव हो सके तो हमारे वीडियोस को बड़ी मात्रा में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करें, सर्कुलेट करें और शेयर करें, ताकि ईमानदार पत्रकारिता ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों तक पहुंचे ऐसे समय में जबकि ईमानदारी से ईमानदार पत्रकारिता करना मुश्किल काम हो रहा है। और अब हम बातचीत करेंगे भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच में जो तनाव है उसको लेकर। उसकी अलग अलग तरीके से व्याख्याएं की जा रही हैं, लेकिन इन दिनों अगर भारत सरकार के बाद कोई एक शख्स सबसे ज्यादा डिमांड में है या ये कहें सबसे ज्यादा जिनकी कीमत इस वक्त है, वो है शशि थरूर। शशि थरूर जो 4 बार के मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है, कांग्रेस के वर्किंग कमेटी के सदस्य हैं, साथ ही साथ वो विदेश राज्य मंत्री भी रह चुके हैं, यूनाइटेड नेशंस में एक लंबी चौड़ी भूमिका निभा चुके हैं। शशि थरूर जी, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है हमारे साथ। लेकिन ये बातचीत हम दरअसल इंग्लिश में करेंगे हमारे उन दर्शकों के लिए, इसलिए मैं अंग्रेजी में सवाल पूछूंगा। बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका शशि जी। मेरा फर्स्ट
धन्यवाद आशुतोष जी। मैं आपका शो का बड़ा फैन हूं, लेकिन कभी कभी सत्य अंग्रेजी में भी बोल सकेंगे।
Bilkul, truly. So my first question is, how you view this entire exercise, this declaration of ceasefire?
Look, I think the manner in which Mr. Trump announced it was deeply disappointing and frustrating for all sorts of reasons that I'll spell out for you. But apart from that, as an Indian, I'm glad that we are briefly at peace, that we have stopped killing people. I mourn for the 22 innocents who died in Poonch, for the 59 who are battling for their lives in a hospital in Poonch, and for the 26 who were killed earlier in Pahalgam. This kind of bloodletting is tragic, and I'm glad it's not happening. Now, having said that, Ashutosh, why am I disappointed with Mr. Trump's tweet and his Truth Social post? Very simply because it has, in 4 ways, let us down very badly. Number one, there is an implied equivalence between India and Pakistan, which means between the victim and the perpetrator. One is inflicting terror on the other, and you're equating the two. Number two, you have actually talked about thousands of years of conflict in Kashmir, and you've kind of internationalized the Kashmir dispute in a manner that India has long since weaned the Americans from doing. Over the last 2 decades, America has understood that India no longer considers Kashmir to be an international dispute. It is a domestic matter of India. It is a matter that we are dealing with on our own. And I'm really sorry to see Mr. Trump backtracking on that. Number 3, you are looking at a situation where you have basically rehyphenated India and Pakistan in your imagination. We as a country had told successive world leaders for at least 30 years, please don't hyphenate us. We are in a different league. If you want to visit India, you're most welcome, but don't do it on the way to Pakistan or on the way from Pakistan. In fact, from the days of President Clinton, no American president has even stopped in Pakistan one way or the other. As recently as January this year, when the Indonesian president came for our Republic Day, he had planned to go to Pakistan. We told him, in that case, please don't come. We don't want you. Because if you're going to Pakistan, we don't want to see you in India. And the poor fellow changed his plans and he went from India to Malaysia instead. So that is the kind of message we've been consistently giving. Sadly, this is again rehyphenated India with Pakistan. So to my mind, all of these are rather unfortunate developments, and they suggest to me that Mr. Trump has not been really properly briefed. His administration is still in a bit of disarray. He has not yet confirmed his Assistant Secretary of State for South Asian Affairs. He doesn't have a US ambassador in India. There is no grown-up adult in the room to tell him that some of these things you're saying and doing are actually a reversal of long-standing policies. And I think that's really why I feel so much disappointment about the manner in which it was done. And finally, the 4th objection is a reference to mediation and negotiation and a neutral venue and all of that. I'm sorry, Ashutosh, we are not going to allow Pakistan to earn a negotiation through pointing a gun at us and killing our people that they could not earn through diplomatic means. That is simply not going to happen. If I know anything about Indian foreign policy, this statement is simply wrong. India will not sit at a negotiating table with Pakistan today because we do not negotiate with a gun pointed at our heads.
But Sashi, what you have been saying is right. But what is outraging the collective mind of a country is there is a deafening silence on behalf of the government. As at least till when I am talking to you, the government has not spoken anything on record. Neither the Prime Minister has said anything, neither the Defense Minister has said anything, nor the Foreign Minister has said anything, nor the Foreign Secretary has said anything. Only there are leaked source-based stories and informations. So, how does you view this silence, on-record silence, and nothing from the government of India when the Mr. Trump has said so many things, which has really outraged us?
Now, I'm very glad that our Prime Minister has agreed to address the nation at 8 o'clock tonight, which I presume will be soon after this thing is broadcast. And then we'll have a chance to take stock. Look, frankly, Ashutosh, on this matter, I definitely disagree with our government's preference for keeping aloof from the media and from public communication. This is something that has been a hallmark of the style of this government. But as you saw, even Pakistan, which is not even half the democracy we are, a government which is really a puppet of the Pakistani military, even there, the defense minister, the foreign minister, the deputy prime minister, सारे आके बोल रहे हैं माध्यमों के सामने, public के सामने. That, I think, in many ways is the kind of thing that honestly we should be doing more of. One of the things that I believe the Pakistanis were able to do better during this conflict is to get their side of the story across to the international media, because they were basically going around saying, look, we are the innocent ones, we are the wronged ones, we have done nothing, and yet India is a rogue state that is attacking us. And though we had a few voices, I think our ambassador in London, our ambassador in Washington, a few others were speaking, by and large, the Pakistanis had an army of sophisticated, well-trained spokespeople all over the world, and we, the functioning democracy, didn't. And I think that was most unfortunate. One of the reasons why I took it upon myself to accept some of the many invitations I was getting from international media to speak is because I felt my country's voice was not being heard otherwise.
But Sasi, this is the third incident where the government of India has not spoken, where the smaller countries have spoken. The first one is the handcuffed and the shackled Indians been sent to this country. And from the USA, when the Prime Minister was talking to the President of America. Second, when the tariff was announced by the American President and smaller countries spoke about it, opposed it, objected it, but India did not say anything. And now when Mr. Donald Trump and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, openly and brazenly saying that it is they who mediated and got the ceasefire done between the countries, again, the government is keeping quiet. Why so?
Well, I think we'll find out when the Prime Minister speaks how far he's prepared to go. On the tariffs, I would say I forgive the government because I think they're very conscious. They're in the middle of a negotiation. They had this agreement when Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi met in the White House that India would have up to 9 months, up to the fall, as they call it in America, to negotiate a bilateral trade agreement. And I think they understandably didn't want to jeopardize that by making needless comments on tariffs, which in any case, they were in the process of negotiating the removal of those tariffs. So there, I would say I would not criticize the country. On the question of the Indians being returned in handcuffs, I said so at the time, and I will say so again, we should have spoken out against it, because this is not the way in which a friendly country should treat our citizens. They may be in violation of American immigration laws, but they are human beings. They're being returned to their own homeland. Let them return in dignity. And we should have said that. And I said it in a few speeches, but who am I? I'm just an opposition MP. I think that the government should have done that. On this particular matter, let's wait till 8 o'clock and see what the Prime Minister says. I've told you why I think Mr. Trump was wrong. And I hope that our government will make it very clear to the people of India exactly how this peace came about. My understanding is it was the Pakistani DGMO who called it 335, and we said yes almost immediately. What was striking about this is if the Americans did do any pressure, they may have been pressing the Pakistanis. But they didn't need to press India because India in any case didn't want a prolonged war. India had been saying from the very beginning of the crisis that we were interested in retaliating against terror. We were not seeing this as the opening salvo in a long drawn-out conflict. That wasn't our objective. So we didn't need to be persuaded to stop. We were ready to stop anyway.
But Shashi, being an opposition leader, do you buy the argument that at 3:50 the Pakistani DGMO has called Indian counterpart and said that we want the cessation of this firing across the border, and then the ceasefire was done? Are you buying this argument? Is it that simple?
Yeah, I'll tell you why it's that simple, Ashutosh. What we signaled on the very first day, on the 7th of May, by the manner in which we did the attack, was precisely that. We said, look, we are only hitting terrorist sites. We are doing so at night when there are very few civilians likely to be wandering the streets. So we're trying to minimize collateral damage. And we have taken great care to not hit military installations or government installations. And we've certainly not hit any cities, any civilian areas of cities. In fact, I'm told our strikes were so precise that we actually hit a precise building within the Lashkar-e-Toiba complex, rather than just an indiscriminate bombing. So the message we said, and then when Vikram Misri spoke the next morning about that attack, he specifically used the words non-escalatory. He said, we are trying not to escalate. Now, what is that message to the Pakistanis? The message is, we have done our thing. We are done and dusted. As far as we're concerned, if you react for your honor's sake at a certain level, we will react to the same level. If you don't react, we will not react. From our point of view, what we wanted to achieve has been achieved. Rather like Balakot. But what happened, of course, was that the Pakistanis reacted with overwhelming force. They shelled indiscriminately across the LOC. The lives taken in Poonch, I truly mourn for them. And then on top of that, they started sending these Turkish drones and missiles across indiscriminately towards our cities, towards our airfields, towards our military installations. We had to hit back. So every time we were doing it, we were saying to all concerned that we were not doing more than they were doing. We were actually doing less. We were conveying that if they hit us hard, we'll hit them back. If they do not hit us hard, then we will not be hitting back. So it seems to me that what we've got going for us here is a very clear signaling. So on that basis, if the Pakistanis knew that the moment they stop, we would also stop, then why couldn't the DGMO have called with American pressure and said, okay, we're going to do this? By the way, I don't think that the Indian government intends to continue, in any case, much more of a conflict, because I've just got the news, or you may not have seen it yet, that the BJP is launching a Tiranga Yatra for 10 days from tomorrow. The idea is to already talk in terms of nationalism, patriotism, achievements of Operation Sindoor in the past, rather than as if it's ongoing war.
But Shashi, do you buy the argument that the target which was set by the government and in a very jingoistic term, have we really achieved that? Or is government suggesting that enough message has been given to the Pakistan, and the Pakistan in future will desist from doing any kinds of misadventure in the future? The terrorist organizations, they always do. And if tomorrow, if something else happen, will India again lodge a war kind of situation with Pakistan? Will be in the war mode? Is it that?
I think it's possible, but it depends on what exactly the next provocation is, Ashutosh. I think if you look at the history of the way in which this has evolved, 2015 January, Pathankot happens. Mr. Modi, fresh from his visit to Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's wedding and Nawaz Sharif's birthday, says to Nawaz Sharif, why don't you join me in investigating this? You send your investigators. Our intelligence community is horrified, but the Pakistani intelligence comes into an Indian airbase. They do the investigation, they go back and they tell the Pakistanis, oh, the Indians did it to themselves. At that point, that's the last straw. Prime Minister loses all faith in Pakistan. End of, this is the last betrayal they can do kind of thing. And then what happens? September of 2016, you have Uri, and we break the first taboo. You remember in Kargil in 1999, we lost lives rather than breach the LOC. In 2016, for the first time, we breached the LOC. We sent a surgical squad right across to Uri, and we struck the play base from which these people had attacked us. Next comes Pulwama. We not only breached the LOC, but in the Balakot strike, we breached the international border. That's one more step up. Then comes Pahalgam in April of 25. Now we breach not only the LOC, not only the international border, we strike them in the heartland of Punjab by hitting places like Bahawalpur and Muridke. This is very serious messaging. The message to Pakistan is, each time you do something to us, the price you pay is going to get greater. And I think that message has been very clearly received. Now, you asked me a very valid question. Does that mean we're making ourselves hostage to every terrorist attack? That next time the Pakistanis feel ready for war, they just do a terrorist attack and we will again go to war and we may not be prepared for it. But number one, we have no choice but to be prepared. Number two, I think we'll draw a distinction between a random terrorist attack. Some bearded Islamist fanatic blows himself up outside Lajpat Nagar market. I don't think we're going to go to war. But if you see an attack like Pahalgam, which bears all the hallmarks of meticulous planning and reconnaissance and training and equipment and escape routes and everything that requires a sophisticated terrorist operation, we will put two and two together and we'll conclude this came from the Pakistani military, intelligence sources, or at the very least, from a very sophisticated terror operation that the Pakistanis have mounted. And therefore, we will indeed want to take it one step beyond what we did this time. I think that is now becoming very clear. And it's becoming clear not just to Pakistan, but to the rest of the world, that they have to now start contributing to reining Pakistan in. Pakistan cannot keep getting a free pass, that as long as they have a grievance on their shoulder, they can attack India and deploy terrorism as an instrument. We are not going to stand for it. And if each time we have taken it up one notch more, it's like turning a screw until it becomes so tight that something is going to break.
Are we really convinced that Pakistan will really learn a lesson after this? Are we really are we naive enough to believe that the Pakistan will not do anything? Pakistan has learned lessons enough. See, look at it, 1971, the Pakistan is broken into two. Pakistan did not learn anything. After that, we had a Kargil war. We have with all kinds of terrorism happening all around. People were killed in India. So what is that Pakistan will learn lessons this time and will not do anything?
My dear Ashutosh, between the 71 war and Kargil was 28 years. So they learned some lessons for some time. An entire generation came and went, in which, unfortunately, that period.
But Shashi, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm sorry to intervene. But in between, they had they fomented the terrorism in Punjab and also in Kashmir.
I'll tell you what happened. History happened. That is that the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and the Americans foolishly taught the Pakistanis the techniques of insurgent warfare, these handheld devices to shoot down Soviet planes, the harassment by the so-called mujahideen of Soviet soldiers. Basically, the techniques learned between 1978 and 1988 by the Pakistani ISI were the techniques they turned against us from 1989. So they had, thanks to American tutelage, discovered that they had a very powerful weapon to overthrow a far more powerful adversary in the Soviet Union. And they said, we can now do the same thing against the Indians in Kashmir that we did to the Soviets in Afghanistan. Of course, they were wrong. We have a capacity to withstand all of this. But this is how history happened. But from 1971 to 1989, we neither suffered a war, nor did we suffer any terrorism. From 89, we suffered terrorism, incident after incident, attack after attack, the Kashmiri Pandits being driven out, lots and lots of examples, and then finally the Kargil war in 99. But then if you look from 99 onwards, our responses also qualitatively evolved. And I would say to you, Ashutosh, there may be changes of government, Vajpayee Saab's government, Manmohan Singh's government, Modi ji's government. Ultimately, we are all Indians. I speak to you today as an Indian. And as an Indian, I believe I have learned the lessons that go back all those years. I have a sense of history, but I want to see the continuity of my country's experience and draw lessons from that. I will not allow myself to fall into the short-termism or the narrow frame of reference that some Western countries may think they can afford. Oh, where is the evidence on Pahalgam? I'm sorry, my dear, I have 30 years of evidence to point to you of Pakistani complicity and denial. And I'm sorry, it is on that basis that I'm acting. And that is why if tomorrow something happens, we will not see it in isolation. We will see it as a continuum of all these things that we've been talking about, you and I, in the course of this conversation.
But Shashi, I know I'm shooting a question to the wrong person. The question should go to the government of India. But I'm asking you, as a somebody who has been a veteran in the global politics and who has seen Pakistan very closely, can we believe and trust that Pakistan will not indulge in any cross-border terrorism now onwards? Have they learned the lesson? Can we
No.
can we say so confidently?
No, we cannot say so confidently. In fact, there is a great danger because, as you know, in our country, the state has an army. In Pakistan, the army has a state. And the army controls a larger percentage of the GDP and the budget of that country than any army of any country in the world controls. So they have a tremendous vested interest, self-interest, in protecting their position there, keeping themselves relevant as the saviors of the Pakistani nation is a fundamental interest for the Pakistani military. And if they can do that by fighting, if they can do that by making others fight, if they can do that by fomenting terrorism, if they can do that by unleashing suicide bombers, they will do every one of those things. Let us have no illusions. This is sadly a very malign state, a very malign force that we are living right next to. Now, what do? It seems to me we have to be alert. Our security forces have to be almost permanently on a state of alert. But at the same time, we have to conduct effective diplomacy, not only with our neighbors, but also with the big powers that may be presumed to have some influence on Pakistan, to help them to understand, to help the Pakistanis to understand that there would be zero global tolerance for their misbehavior. Right now, the Pakistanis are looking at plausible deniability. Where is the evidence? They're saying, where is the evidence? All right, tomorrow, when they said, where is the evidence for bin Laden? The Americans found them the evidence. But the Americans still felt they needed Pakistan because of Afghanistan, so they continued. Now the Americans are no longer in Afghanistan, so they're no longer so dependent on Pakistan. I think there is a real risk for the Pakistanis that every time they misbehave, the level of tolerance for their misbehavior, the level of credibility for their denials will be keeping on going down. In that lies some security for us. But ultimately, Ashutosh, have no illusions. We are responsible for our own security. At the end of the day, we can turn to no one else to keep us safe. I understand the value of diplomacy. I understand the value of military cooperation. I understand the value of good neighborly relations. But at the end of the day, Ashutosh, we are alone. And we must be sure that in that aloneness, we are strong enough to ensure that these people cannot do us fundamental damage. And this is the question. Bharatiya civilization has been around for a few thousand years. We're not going to let the 77-year-old state destroy us or it.
The last two questions, but before that, because I think the Pakistan is already living in illusions, because a large section of the people across the border in India is very upset that the why ceasefire has been denied, ceasefire has been announced, and why it is done when India was in the dominant position. Whereas in Pakistan, there is a rejoice. They are celebrating. And their newspapers, their journalists, and everybody is calling that they are victorious. So obviously they have not learned any lessons, and neither they want to learn any lesson. Let's leave it there. Now the question is, your party, and I'm asking this question to the Congress member of Parliament who has been a minister of state for the foreign affairs. Are you really serious when your party is talking about 1971 and comparing and telling to the whole world that you need to be Indira Gandhi, and in a way you are telling that Mr. Narendra Modi, you have let the country down? Why Indira Gandhi thing and why 1971?
Well, speaking in a purely personal capacity, I don't think the circumstances of 1971 are in any way comparable to the circumstances of 2025. In 1971, we have Pakistan, two wings separated by thousands of kilometers of Indian territory. A major logistics challenge for Pakistan to supply its forces. Second, you have overwhelming numerical and artillery superiority over the 93,000 Pakistani soldiers stationed in East Pakistan, which then became Bangladesh. Third, you had an overwhelming moral cause, a cause of liberating a people that had been subject to violence, oppression, and genocide. Fourth, you had a clear-cut objective that could be fulfilled within a realistic period of time. In 17 days, we were able to capture East Pakistan, win the surrender of the Pakistani army. None of those four conditions exist in the present situation. We do not have, unfortunately, any opportunity to do anything like that to Pakistan today. What is more, the Pakistan of today is also not the Pakistan of 1971. They are stronger, better equipped. Their economy is in probably worse shape, but the amount of equipment, the sophisticated equipment the Chinese and now the Turks are giving them, these are all things we have to take into account. I have no doubt that today the right thing for us to do was to accept an offer of peace the moment it came. If it had come 2 days earlier, I would have accepted it. If it had come 2 days later, I would have accepted it. Because for me, killings, each day's deaths were futile. How many more children in Poonch do you want to see being buried or burned? How many more people do you want fighting for their lives in hospital? How many more soldiers and pilots do you want to put at risk? And for what? For what? To my mind, there was no good reason to continue this war. I stress I'm not speaking for my party, for my committee, for anybody else. This is me as an individual who has seen a lot of the world and has seen a lot of horror and conflict in my time. In my UN days, I dealt with some very gruesome wars, and I don't want to see my country suffering another gruesome war.
Shashi, pardon me saying so, but your party is trying to project that Mrs. Gandhi did not succumb to American pressure. He listened to all kinds of words, wrong words from the Henry Kissinger and Nixon, but she did not. Where is the perception the party is trying
to... She did not.
Yeah. And here your party is trying to create a perception that Mr. Narendra Modi and his government has surrendered before the Trump and let him mediate. And now he's suggesting that the internationalization of Kashmir also. Now, let's move it to the other question. Why your party wants a special session in the parliament? Do you want to put him on the mat, the Prime Minister and the government?
Look, sorry, I think there you will have to get the party spokesman to tell you what the objectives are. As a member of the party, I obviously support the request. But in the meantime, I, as chairman of the Standing Committee on External Affairs, have also asked for a briefing for my committee on the diplomacy and the diplomatic issues surrounding this. And we will have that briefing next Monday, the 19th. The Foreign Secretary will come and brief our committee. I think parliamentary accountability is essential in a democracy like ours. And I'm very glad that the government has agreed to my request as part of the process of parliamentary accountability. I certainly hope that they will also accede to the opposition's request for a larger session, because the committee is only, a handful of people. We have 31 members, but normally barely 20, 22 will be attending each time. And Parliament is a lot more people than that. So maybe both can benefit from this kind of briefing.
Is there any Modi doctrine now?
I think we'll wait to hear from Mr. Modi this evening as to what he says about that, right?
Thank you, Shashi. Thank you so much.
Ashutosh, माफ कीजिए कि मैं एक colonialist की भाषा में बोलना लगा, लेकिन ऐसे आपको पता है कि precision बड़ी जरूरी है. मैं कोई गलती की कोई चीज कह के कोई लफ्ज गलती से इस्तेमाल करके मैं कोई complication नहीं बनना चाहता.
Before I say I say thank you to you, I just want to remind you that Mr. Mohan Bhagwat a few days back has said that we all need to decolonize our mind. So probably the day will come when we will be decolonized.
The mind is decolonized, the tongue is not yet.
Thank you so